Welcome to the Point Noted Podcast with your host, Johnny B, and co-host who shows up whenever he wants to, former NFL player, Rashad Barksdale. It's raw, unfiltered, and no topic is off limit. We talk sports, entertainment, culture, and a whole lot of random shit. Let's get to the point.
Point of the Podcast. You're hanging out with your host, Johnny B. And today we have a special guest in the house. I'm really excited about this. We have Brooklyn president, former New York City police officer, captain. Y'all welcome Eric Adams to the show. Eric, how you doing, sir?
Thank you so much, man. It's good to be on and to speak with your listeners. I'm looking forward to a nice, healthy conversation.
Absolutely, same here. When I got the opportunity to get you on and chat with you, I said, "Man, let's do it." I'm excited. This is the people I want to talk to. So once again, thank you for coming on board. So the one thing I'm going to jump into real quickly is Brooklyn Borough president. So I did not know this actually exists. I have to really be honest up front. I was like, wait, each borough has a president. So what is it? What is a borough president do? What is that job like?
And that's a legitimate question. For other municipalities, they call them county executives.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure why the founders of New York City decided to give each one of the boroughs county executive a borough. But Brooklyn is a president. Brooklyn is the largest of the 5 counties in New York. Manhattan, Queens, Bronx, Staten Island, and Brooklyn. We have 2.6 million people. 47% of them speak a language other than English at home. And so it's a microcosm of the entire city. And the role of the borough president is to represent his borough in so many ways, tangible ways, as in giving out capital dollars, or in ways of representing the concerns of the people in the borough. Everything from, the issues around interaction with policing to schools to land use when people want to build in the borough. So it's like you're not going to get the mayor on the phone every day, but you can get your borough president on the phone when you need to.
Yep, that sounds good. I like that. So do you have that? Because you said you can't get the mayor on the phone. So I'm assuming that means you probably got a nice little pathway to the mayor.
Yes, no, without a doubt. It is, in constant contact in many ways. I'm a person that's respectful of how you utilize the time of people. And so, if it means the best way to reach you is to text you and you text me back, then I'm good with that. So I always ask people, what is the best way to communicate with you? Not my best way. What is your best way so I can get the end result? And so he and I have found a good way of making sure we're able to communicate and just move things forward.
Right, man. I hope all my older listeners actually just heard what you just said. There's nothing wrong with testing. All right, if that's the way you can get a hold of your child or your kids or your grandkids, it's okay to text them. You'd be amazed how many, I can't even text my mother. Well, now she's actually testing, but it took a while to get her to actually understand, like, Mom, you might have to just text me and I will get back to you.
I know that. My mom was the same way. Now I can't get her to stop texting.
Right. You open that gate, now you're in it. So we got all this COVID going on, right? And I know, in New York City it was really, really devastating, the casualties and how people just falling left and right and people getting infected. And now we're talking about going back, everybody going back out there, back to the normal life as best as we can. So this is like a 2-part question. First is, how are you and your team working around COVID, right? And then also I want to know, should we be going back out, right? Like, are we on the right path going back now, or are we pushing too soon like some of these other states have done?
It's a good observation. And my team really, they have been amazing. We have not missed a beat. As soon as the virus hit the city, we have been nonstop and really creating an operation that is a combination of remote commuting and dealing with on the ground. I moved into Borough Hall so I can build a command center and respond on the ground in a real way, delivering food, delivering PPEs, really having an
Right.
analysis of what was happening. Because many people don't realize when coronavirus hit the country, we divided the country into two uh, bodies. One is what they call essential employees, and the second was non-essential employees.
Right.
Non-essential employees were told to shelter in place. They were told to wear face coverings, and they was told to uh, basically telecommute. Essential
Right.
employees were told just the opposite. They weren't allowed to wear face covering. In some cases, they were brought up on charges inside their agencies. They couldn't shelter in place because of the nature of their job, and they couldn't
Hmm.
telecommute. The problem is that over 75% of the essential employees were black and brown. And so
Right. Right.
we sent black and brown people out into the universe and said, we're not going to protect you. We're not going to take care of you. And in many cases, brother, they said, we're not even going to test you for coronavirus. So you would take this
Wow.
virus home to your family. Well, we found, Jamani Williams and I, we found that this had happened all over the country, all these big
Really?
cities. And so when you talk about how people got through COVID-19, it depended on your ethnicity and your neighborhood because some got hit harder than others, and there was a slow response in communities of color.
Wow. So those under your shit are really blessed to have somebody like you, and I think you mentioned Jomani, being able to actually have an eye out for this and to keep an eye out for what's going on. So what about those like I mean, really, so basically every community have to have the type of leader that's willing to be that food soldier for you to find out what's going on to provide you the right information, right?
No, without a doubt. And I said to myself, how am I going to tell train operators, bus drivers, 911
Mm,
operators, which are predominantly black and brown, nurses and hospital personnel, black and brown? How am I going to tell them, you know what, go out in the field of battle, but as your
mm,
general, I'm going to sit home somewhere? No, man, generals
right,
lead from the front. That's what real
right,
leadership is. You have to be in harm's way with your troops, because
right.
then your troops, that's not only substantial in nature, but it's also emotional. When you see your leader with you
Out
on
there
the
with you.
front line, you have
Right,
a different feeling about, hey, we can fight this battle and we can win.
right. Right, absolutely, absolutely, and what I can think of when you talk about leaders and following command, you think about. I'm not sure if you watched the Last Dance, and they talk about how Michael leads the team, and listen, and Michael's look, I'm out here to play. I'm not sure why you're here, but if I'm out here busting my behind, I need the whole team busting your behind. So you know what I mean? Like you can't, like you said though, you can't see your command, your leader going hard, and you going after, half-ass
That's
with it. It's
right.
just not gonna work.
And those are the leaders we need
Right,
uh, for these times. There's certain that I believe there are two different types of leaders. They're peacetime and they're wartime leaders. And wartime
mm,
leaders really rise to the occasion and they run into the field of battle because they know that you can't win the war from the sidelines. And
right.
I'm a straight up wartime leader, brother. That's all I know. you know,
Right.
is, a peacetime. I'm not the person that you want, but when all hell has hit and we need to survive like we are now, you want someone
Right.
that's not going to crumble or get intimidated by the pressure that you're facing.
Right. 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 You've been there. You've been on that front line. You are NYPD police officer for over 22 years, a captain too. Man, talk about being in the, because and I don't want to talk too much about obviously the NYPD because I think that can probably take us a whole day, a whole session. But we also understand that even when they get the bad rap, that's about a very tiny percentage of the unit that does that. But unfortunately, in the news, we always talk about the bad. But talk about what got you into want to be part of the NYPD, and what
As
was
a,
that like over 22 years?
yeah, no, and it was real, brother. As a child, I was actually arrested and beat bad by two police officers, my brother and I, and
Oof,
and I was, my innocence was robbed at 15 by that beating, seeing the symbol of authority of violating
wow.
you in that fashion. And I was angry for a long period of time, probably between the ages of 15 and 19, until
Right.
I joined an organization called the National Black United Front. And it was around the time that Randolph Evans and Arthur Miller was a prominent businessman that was killed. Uh, he was murdered by 16 police officers that used a chokehold, mind you.
Mm.
And the leaders of the civil rights group told me and 13 other brothers to go into the police department and fight from within, because we couldn't only be fighting from outside. And I went in
Outside.
there. I went in, joined 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care, started that organization, and we just fought for reform. And so I didn't want to be a cop. I was a computer programmer. I wanted to open my own firm. But sometimes the mission calls you. You don't call the mission.
True. Very true. Yeah. Yeah. Have you touched any computer codes lately?
Yeah, it's very interesting that during that time in 1984, mid 90s, our city was dealing with a serious crime problem.
Okay.
And when I went into the agency, I was part of a team that created the first real time computer system to fight crime in real time.
Mm.
And using my computer skills, we created that system. That system then became something called ComStat, and we went from having 2,000 homicides a year in the city, particularly in the black and brown communities, to bringing down those crime numbers. And the city became the safest big city in America. Now we had some
Right.
problems. Now, don't get me wrong, but for the most
Right.
part, we would no longer just keep waking up to gunshots and not alarm clocks. So
Right.
it was about, we have to be safe, man. And even now that we spill into this conversation of Black Lives Matter, I'm consistent. I knocked on a lot of doors and notified parents that their children or their child was killed. And I
Mm.
never heard a mother yell any quieter if her child was killed by a cop in a blue uniform or a gangbanger in blue jeans. Pain is
Right.
pain and death is
Pain
death.
is pain.
You know,
Woo.
we had 100. Think about this for a moment. We had 101 people shot last week.
Wow.
All of them were black and brown. All the shooters were black and brown
In the city?
in the city, in New York City.
Wow.
Think
Damn.
think about that for a moment, man. So we got to be consistent in our message.
Right. 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 Wow. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's definitely that's a tough thing to swallow. But like you said, though, it doesn't matter who killed your child. Uh, when the mother or father hears that news, even a brother or sister, he just hates the same way. It's a loss is a loss. Um, and I think if I hear you correctly, yeah, we obviously know the Black Lives Matter, but there's a bigger message behind that, you know. And I think in looking at some of the stuff that people are crying for, it's, how do we stop all this racial injustice? How do we stop this racial profiling? And I know back in the days you would be pretty strong against the stop and frisk and all of that. But now that you're out of the police department, now you're in the president of the bureau, so you're more focused on one bureau. I like to think that's what part of your job is, and you're going into this mayoral race, right? And we're going to dive into that a whole lot too as well. How do you think your experience from the police department, coming from the National Black United Front and all of that, how do you think that helps the black community, the brown and black community?
That's a great question, brother. Remember, the police commissioner is chosen by the mayor,
Mm, that's
and
true.
the police commissioner is chosen by the mayor. The police commissioner chooses his precinct commanders, and the precinct commanders monitor the behavior of the cops.
Right.
So if we
Okay.
follow and connect the dots,
Right.
say if we have the right mayor, he's going to pick the right commander,
Commissioner.
right
Right.
police commissioner, and the right police commissioner is going to pick the right commander, because precinct commanders are the most powerful officials in the city. They are mini oligarchs. They control a geographical boundary in a community, and if they're not someone that respects the community, then the entire system erodes, no matter who's the mayor or the commissioner. That's why, as the mayor, you must have a system in place that that commander is beholden to the community that he's representing.
Wow. So I did not see that power link between the commander and the commissioner and the mayor. That's actually great information. I'm sure there are more listeners out there. We just learned something. So before we pick it back on that and come back to that, let's go back to you running for mayor, right? You are running for mayor, correct?
We're still in the process of putting the final pieces together. We haven't made an official announcement, but it is definitely something we have our eyes on right now.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. We here at Point Another Podcast. We like to say we leaning towards my man Eric Adams running. Uh, and if he runs, we wish him nothing but the best. But so to go back to the city and how the whole thing link up between the commissioner, the commander, and the mayor. We know De Blasio is leaving, and there's a big rift between him and the police department. Like they've got some police union or membership online that constantly just berate the mayor. They talk him down, undress him, and all of that. What's going on there?
Just so there's a lot of tension right now, and not only here in New York City, but across America. Historically, police departments had a level of elitism attached to them. It's almost like Jack Nicholson's "Few Good Men" quote when he said, "You really don't want to know the truth," because
Mm,
those who are of power, those who feel as though long as you keep us safe, we don't care how you do it. And so there's been a complete denial of dealing with people, particularly those of color. And so now all of a sudden, when you have calls for real reform, calls for police officers to rein in their behavior, there's a portion of officers, not all, and people need to be careful about that, but there's a portion of officers who all of a sudden want to push back and basically say, if you don't let us do what we want, how we won't police you. And I say to that, no, that's not how it goes. We cannot be held in blackmail on our public
right.
safety. You could have justice and safety. They go together. You can't have safety without
Together.
justice, and you can't have justice without safety.
Correct. Correct. Can there be some kind of consequences when officers decided to just walk out?
Yes,
Is
there
there a
is.
rule in the
And I,
book
I
that
think that,
uh,
and there is.
I'm
And I
sorry?
think that's exactly what you're going to start seeing. There's already a series of rules that's demanding a greater accountability for police officers. And you know what? Basically, these cats are going to have to adjust. This is a new day. The definition of public safety is changing. The expectations of people
Right.
who have the right to police us, all of that is changing. And now think about this for a moment, brother. Police officers have two rights that no other citizen has. They have the right to take life and the right to take liberty. That's in our Constitution.
Right.
The right for the pursuit of happiness, life, and liberty. So if you have those two rights, you have to be held accountable, and you have to
High standard.
rise to the level of the nobility of public protection. And far too many people have been in the institution of law enforcement that were not deserving of that right, and now people are starting to say you need to be deserving of that right.
Hmm. Right. Have you noticed a lot of difference between when you were in the force and now? Like, what is the big change you've seen that possibly could? Obviously, nothing has changed, in my opinion, in police brutality. I think we're just seeing videos of it now, right? It's always been there. It's just now we have videos that's actually showing us what they're doing to folks out there. Have you seen something different? What's the big difference you've seen between when you were in the force and what's going on now?
Same madness, but as you stated, who would have? I'm sure Steve Jobs never realized that that one iPhone would be a game changer in police reform.
Right.
So,
Unless it was just a true genius that can see the future, right?
because remember, it has always been videos. If you go to the civil rights era, it wasn't until People saw the videos of children being bit by German shepherds, or when they saw the
Mm-hmm.
meeting of Congressman Lewis and Dr. King trying to cross the Pettus Bridge. So videos have always struck the consciousness of those who wanted to ignore the reality of what was going on every day. And so now we're just seeing these videos that are showing the horrific behavior of those who were doing it and became so comfortable in doing it. Because remember,
Right.
Floyd murderer, he had his hand in his pocket. He had a level of comfort, and he just felt as though, so what? That's the arrogance, see, that was attached to policing, and that's being changed.
Right. Right. And it just feels like it never stopped. There was I think there was one just happened out here in upstate New York where I'm at. Police officer having his knee on a gentleman's neck while he was on the ground. I seen we this is what started the old George Floyd protests all over the country, but yet we're still seeing it like 2, 3 months later. Like I don't understand. Like if it's just like a deafness going on in the department or just don't care. Like I mean, is it just the free will, freedom of well, I'm doing my job? Like I don't understand. Like what makes this guy continue to go back out there and do the same thing? And I know you mentioned earlier about just having the right leadership in play. Is it as simple as that, or do we need to retrain officers?
No, it's a combination. It's all about muscle memory. Think about it. You wake up in the morning, you don't think about how to brush your teeth and put toothpaste on and move it up and down and back and forth. That's the muscle memory. And
Mm,
the muscle memory of racism, arrogance, abuse. When you've done it for so long, saw it for so long, it becomes, instead of being abnormal, it becomes normal. And so the only way you can change that muscle memory is to show that it's not, number one, it's not going to be tolerated.
right,
Where those who carry it out, you have a zero tolerance for it. When someone carries it out, you immediately
right.
remove them from the agency on those egregious levels. And when it's a non-egregious level, put them through a system of retraining until you figure out, hey, this person is not going to be retrained. It's time to remove them from the agency and don't no longer give them that authority.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. Why not? Why not do that? Do we need I had this conversation with one of my co-hosts with another guest. Do we need to increase the education requirement for being a police officer? Obviously that thing's out who you can have, right? But if there's some kind of education requirement, might it be a bachelor's degree or an associate degree? But if you come in with an associate, you have to obtain your bachelor within a certain amount of time. Because intelligence might play also into this, right? Having intelligence or having some kind of education besides high school possibly could help you to understand that, okay, common sense tells me to get my knee up for this man, or common sense tells me if he's running away, I shouldn't have to shoot him. Or is that just a total, am I just looking at it something a totally different view?
No, no, you're on target, and I believe I read one report that an individual with the highest level of education, like a bachelor's degree, have been shown to be less likely to be abusive. But I say let's go one step further.
Okay.
Not only look at a a bachelor's degree, but what we should do in New York City, I like to compare it to the major leagues and minor leagues of law enforcement. In New
Okay.
York City, the NYPD is the major league of law enforcement, but we have a substantial minor league of law enforcement. Hospital police, traffic enforcement agents, school safety agents, all of these different agencies. So I say, let's allow them after 2 years of being in these agencies and being observed, seeing how they are able to interact with the public, and allow them to wade into the police department after we observe them for 2 years. Why is this important? One, 80% of the people I just mentioned to you in the minor league are black and brown. Almost 100% live in New York City, and a large number of them are women. And
Mm,
so we could change the demographics of the police department in 3, 4 years just by having this system in place. Second, as it currently stands, you can go to school for basket weaving, and those credits
mm,
are acceptable. So the mere fact someone goes to school and not getting the proper social emotional intelligence and instruction and learning doesn't mean you're going to produce a good product. This person could have lived home all his life, All of a sudden, he graduates from school with a associate's degree, leaving his mom's home, never had to interact with a diverse environment. You're not getting a good product. You're getting a product
Right.
that is not rurally enough to understand the diversity of policing. I'd rather an experienced person that interacted under difficult times and we were able to observe than a person who merely sat inside a classroom and still think that policing is a frat house where everything is
Mm,
a joke in a game.
right. Right. I agree with that last part too. Right. Things in Friday hours. So I used to do this job where I know we're coming hard on time. I used to do this job where I used to work with the mentally challenged folks, and we would go to their house and work with them. But every 3 months, we have to go back to the headquarters and go in for training to just make sure we know exactly what we're doing and we're still doing the right thing. The police officers have the same thing where it's almost like like a checkup, right? Like, okay, we got to go to class again, get retrained every 3 months, get retrained every 6 months, go through behavior. Like, what are you doing out there? How should we be doing this? We've had a new update to how we're going to start, holding down suspect and chasing after suspect. Do they go through that or do we need to have that as well?
That's a great question, brother. What police officers do is something called in-service training. They
In
normally
service.
go, yeah, they normally go to learn how to shoot their guns or some new
No.
procedure. We
Oh,
need to
man.
build into that in-service training other forms of training, of
Right.
dealing with people, particularly dealing with, folks emotionally disturbed people, particularly when they're violent, and also how to identify trauma and de-escalation of one's
Right.
colleagues. We don't spend enough
Absolutely.
of of having officers instruct on the de-escalation practices of dealing with their colleagues.
Mm. That would be great because we can stop a lot of these killings that we've seen where officers just watching each other.
Yes, so
You know,
true.
yeah. I mean, it's like as an athlete, just go back to me being an athlete. If my teammate consistently fouls, I'm telling him, look, stop fouling or get off the field, right? Like, coach, coach, get him out. And as a coach, I tell my guys all the time, one more dumb foul, you're done. It's very simple. So, and before we dive into a little bit of sports here for some light talk, what's the best borough in New York?
The best.
The best borough.
Oh, Brooklyn, man, of course, man. What kind of question is that, man? Is that
hey! I have to ask. I got some buddies that live in Brooklyn, and so I know they're gonna listen to that and say, "Man, what are you asking? What do you mean? It's Brooklyn, of course." What's the best part of living in New York City? Because for those who don't or who've been there, we worry about traffic, the congestion of it, how expensive it is to live in New York City. What's the best part of living in New York City?
diversity, man?
The
If
bar city,
really you want to just dive into the diversity, lean into your discomfort, and see the beauty of just learning something new every day. You could
right?
walk into a Chinese restaurant, have a Russian cook make you an Italian meal that he learned from his Mexican girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? That's how diverse it is, man. The city,
Hey,
that's the joy, man.
that,
It's a fusion.
listen, that would worry me though. If I walk into a Chinese restaurant and the Russian girl is cooking and she telling me she learned it from a Mexican boyfriend, I might just walk back out. It sounds diversified, but I'm just not sure. That's something I want to eat, but it sounds like it might be good though. So we went up here on time, but I got another one for you though. If you were running for mayor, right, New York City, we know De Blasio's time is running up. And based on the Constitution, he can't run again. At least he got to sit out for another 4 years. But if you were running for mayor, what would you be trying to get done? What would you be trying to fix? What changes would you bring to the city?
Name of the game is we have to move away from treating symptoms and responding upstream. One of my mentors was Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who stated we spend
Mm,
a lifetime pulling people out of the river. No one goes upstream and prevent them from falling in the first place. I
wow.
believe we need to go upstream and govern from upstream.
Right.
Upstream is dealing with our children, giving them foundation and education, dealing with issues that create poverty. And we need to break the chains of generation poverty. And there's no
Right.
better way to do it than in education. And so my focus is on education And education different from everyone else. I believe the first classroom is in a mother's womb. You need to make sure mothers have doulas that can give them instruction on nutrition,
Mm,
on brain
mm,
development, so that their children, so they know that the first 1,000 days of life. Think about this for a moment, brother. The first 1,000 days of life, your brain develops 80%. The rest of your life
mm.
is only going to develop 20%. So
Wow,
if we
interesting.
don't play a role in that development, we never have another chance again to develop that child's brain. And that development means not only instruction, but nutrition, nurturing, and understanding what we can do every day of that child's life to expand the development of his brain. That's the mission of education, not what we're seeing now.
Wow. Yeah, that's what we need. I'm sure that's what the city needs. Breath of fresh air, some education to come into the system and change things up a little bit. And I love what you said, though. First class is in the mother's womb. I'm definitely going to start using that, and hopefully I get some hugs from some mothers out there when I start sounding like a really smart guy. But before I let you go, though, so the NBA is trying to come back. Are you a basketball fan?
Yes, I am. Love it, man. Love the game.
Love the game. Knicks fan or Nets fan?
I'm sorry.
Knicks fan or Nets fan or
I
both
gotta
fan? Let's
say,
say both.
man, don't get me in trouble.
Let's say both fan. You're a basketball fan. You're a basketball fan.
That's right.
Most New Yorkers won't pick a team, and I get that. So, NBA is trying to come back. Obviously, NFL is a little worried about it, and baseball's trying to come back, and some of these players they're pulling out. They don't want to come back. What's your take on that? I mean, obviously, we want sports to be entertainers, but some of these guys are just scared of COVID. What's your take on that? What do you think about what's going on with that?
Well, I view life through the prism of health. Health is important, and so whatever we do, we have to do it in a safe fashion. These guys have multi-million-dollar contracts, and they're concerned about their health, and so we need to just make sure that if we do come back, definitely can't put fans in the stands right now. So we have to make sure we do it in a healthy way. Let no one fool you. Coronavirus is real.
Right.
Folks are losing their lives,
Right.
limbs, and even those who had it and cycled out of it, they are still dealing with some serious healthcare issues. The science is
Mm,
not out yet on the impact on our brains, on our kidneys, on our lungs. They're saying there may be
right.
permanent, long-lasting damage. So we don't know
Ooh,
the outcome of coronavirus yet. And so I think we need to err on the side of caution because it's real.
it's real. It's real, and I think anyone who has ears and anyone who's been reading anything can probably agree with that. It's pretty real out there. It's dangerous. I had a cousin of mine that just fought through it. Really worried about him, but he made through it. So, and I know a lot of people out there that have lost a lot of loved ones over COVID. So, yeah, I mean, it's real. Listen, I don't leave the house without masks, gloves, and sanitizers. I'm covered up sometimes when I leave the house. So it's just trying to protect,
Feel that.
trying to protect yourself. So, but Eric, I really appreciate you taking the time out to chat with me. It's fun. I wish we could talk forever, but I know, if you do make the news, Trevon, that I'll get a chance to we can have another conversation.
Love it, man. This is a Terminator conversation. I'll be back.
I absolutely appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
All right. All love. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Point Noted podcast with Johnny B and Rashad B. Follow us on Twitter at PTNoted and Instagram at Point Noted. Hit the subscribe and follow button to follow us and check out more episodes of us talking a whole bunch of shit. You've been noted.